Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be doing another update for today. It's November 16th. It's before the New York closing for the markets. And I want to play some of the videos that I wasn't able to play earlier today. So let's start with that. We have Sky News Australia talking to General Keane.
San Francisco. It's not our Prime Minister landing there. It's 20th trip living in this in Australia. Now, what is embarrassing is the US dancing around China's dangerous dictator. And the Americans realize that, whoa.
Show your daughter how much you love her with this beautiful gift. It says, to my daughter.
And the Americans realize that, whoa, oh dear, Xi Jinping is going to see all those drug addicts and homeless people in our streets. San Francisco, it's terrible. And they might think, well, the US is falling apart. So just for this meeting, the addicts and homeless were cleared out. And when Xi did arrive yesterday, saw a forest of communist Chinese flags. He must be laughing, thinking China really is taking over from crumbling America. And in their meeting yesterday, President Joe Biden pleaded with Xi for China to stop sending over the makings of fentanyl, which is the drug that's doing most damage to so many US cities. But there was more, of course, in this meeting between the presidents, two superpowers, seemed on the brink of World War III. And joining me is Jack Keane, a retired four-star general, served as Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He's now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Keane, great to see you again. What do you read into this meeting between President Xi and President Biden?
Well, I don't dispute that the fact that world leaders, even adversarial leaders, should have meetings. We had plenty of them dealing with the Soviet Union through the years, and at times, quite remarkably, they led to some treaty negotiations, particularly dealing with nuclear weapons. But my concern about this has always been the Biden administration's preoccupation with the value of the meetings. In other words, they are under the belief that by playing nice with China, they can actually change their behavior. And it's such a naive position to take. And I think it has a lot to do, frankly, Andrew, with the president. Kind of old school here in terms of dealing with this and not facing up to the very harsh realities here that China and the United States really are adversaries. And we're not doing a very good job at all of deterring them from their aggressiveness in the region, something the people in Australia see on a regular basis, their aggressiveness against the United States. You know, Andrew, they have intercepted our aircraft and ships 180 times in the last 2 years. That is absolutely exceeds anything that took place in the last decade leading up to that. And that's not to speak.
This is an example on how the hegemonic power of the United States is crumbling and how ultra-liberalism, poor leadership at the executive branch, and infighting at the legislative branch has led to this crisis. And I've been saying all the way back to 2020, even 2019, that Taiwan is going to be a major flashpoint and a major deciding factor if we're going to have hegemonic power in the Pacific. And if we lose, then that stability in that region is all going to change. So we have to keep in mind that Taiwan is a major strategic point for the hegemonic power of the United States. And if we just keep on letting the Chinese be aggressive in the Pacific and we don't counter that, then we are a declining empire. And in many ways we are. Our debt is too high, that we have a society of ultra liberals that are destroying the family unit. And now we have a military that's been gutted. We have a military that doesn't even know if they're a male or a female. We have a military that's run by a bunch of generals that don't win wars. My grandfather, which was, one of the original CBs in World War II, all right, kicked ass. Now he was a bit aggressive towards the Japanese, you know, but that whole generation had issues with the Germans and the Japanese. But but I'll tell you, we had a generation during World War II that knew how to get things done. Now we don't have a generation that gets things done, and we placate to the special interests and the money powers, and unfortunately, the United States is a declining empire, and I'm not so sure if we can get out of the tailspin.
Up to that. And that's not to speak of their aggressiveness towards Taiwan and our other allies in the region. And we haven't sanctioned anybody in dealing with that. We have no plan to deter them from that activity. So I'm very concerned that China reads the wrong signals here. And that simply is that the United States leadership is weak. You can take advantage of them. And I think it brings us closer to war when you have that kind of weakness and your adversary is of the belief that the United States leadership is weak and the U.S. is in decline. I think that's kind of where we are.
Well, there's meanwhile another challenge, of course, to Western civilization in a sense, really. It's this war in Gaza. Israel trying to destroy the Hamas terrorists that rule there and slaughtered 1,200 Jews. How do you see that war going? Is Israel achieving what it set out to do, which is destroy the Hamas infrastructure?
Yes, they are about that business. It is the right objective to have. They've never had that objective before. It's always been in the past to destroy some of their infrastructure, kill as many leaders as they could and fighters, and then get out as quickly as they could before there was widespread international condemnation of the civilian casualties that were taking place, largely because Hamas offers up those civilians to be casualties. But this time, the military aim is very different. It's going to take some time. And if they don't accomplish the mission, they know full well now that if they don't dismantle Hamas, if they don't take the network down and its effectiveness as a terrorist organization, a military organization, and certainly as a governing body as well, then they're going to come back. They'll reset and reattack. And they know that. And that's why this military aim is so different. And it has to be accomplished. And that's the reality of it. They are about doing it. We're watching this at the think tank I chair, Institute for the Study of War. And they're being very deliberate about what they do. But yes, they're taking the tunnel complexes down. They've taken down hundreds of miles of those. And so the other objective they have in mind is to get all the hostages back at some point.
Well, I don't hold out all that much hope of getting, all that many of them free, but we can only hope. General Jack Keane, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Yeah, great talking to you, Andrew, as always. Thank you.
All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Sky News Australia, and I believe it's going to be Piers Morgan that's going to be talking
Brighteon, who's the senior advisor to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a former ambassador to the United Kingdom. Mr. Brighteon, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I want to ask you specifically about the Al-Shifa, hospital. What is actually happening there? Because the IDF have said they've gone in and they have proven that this was being used as a command center by Hamas. Hamas say, no, they haven't. This is actually what's been going on there is a war crime, a deliberate attack on a hospital. I've got to say that so far, the evidence that the IDF has published in terms of videos and pictures and so on, I don't think it's overly compelling. It doesn't look like to me like a command center. It looks to me like a hospital, which has got uniforms and some military hardware and some firearms and so on. But it doesn't look to me like the central hub for Hamas in Gaza.
So patients will be providing more information as it becomes available. Not all the information we have at the moment we can make public, and I can understand why you want to see it. But let's be clear, it's not just the government of Israel that says Hamas has a command and control and its military network underneath the hospital. The US government said it 2 days ago at the Pentagon and the White House. And the truth is that the people who live there in the region, in the city of Gaza, the Palestinians themselves there, it's the worst kept secret that Hamas has. Everybody knows that Hamas has a military structure under the hospital.
I mean, the reason it's so important is, as you know, Article 19 of the Geneva Convention, which is what governs the way warfare is conducted, says the protection to which civilian hospitals are entitled shall not cease unless they are used to commit outside the humanitarian duties acts harmful to the enemy. Protection may, however, cease only after due warning has been given, naming in all appropriate cases a reasonable time limit, and after such warning has remained unheeded. So is your position that Israel has meticulously stuck by the letter of that article of the Geneva Convention in relation to the Al-Shifa hospital?
100%. 100%. We've given adequate warning. We've urged civilians to leave the area. We've done so, I think, 3.5 weeks ago, we started asking civilians to leave. And the truth is, the overwhelming majority of civilians have left. Some 1 million people have left that area of northern Gaza, have heeded our advice, moved south, out of harm's way, because we didn't want to see them caught up in the crossfire between the Israeli Defense Forces and the terrorists of Hamas.
What do you say to somebody like me who has spent 6 weeks now debating this, who believes October the 7th was one of the worst terror attacks of modern times, that Israel absolutely has not only a right to defend itself, but a fundamental duty to its people to protect them, particularly given the Hamas spokesman last week said, we're going to try and do this again and again and again. That is an existential threat to Israel. I get that. I believe Hamas has to be removed. It cannot be removed peacefully. It has to be removed militarily, in my estimation. But the question then becomes, how much of the civilian casualties that we're seeing becomes too much? Not just for Israel and any moral line that you may have here, but for the wider international community, which is already, as we're seeing in England today, there's been a big vote in Parliament, many people resigning from the Labour shadow bench because of what's going on and wanting a ceasefire. What do you say to people like me that believe that you are right in principle, but that the execution of what is happening in Gaza is getting so bad that it borders on unjustified?
So the first thing I would argue is it's crucial that we get rid of Hamas. We saw the sort of violence Hamas is capable of inflicting upon innocent civilians. You yourself just said that October 7th was horrific and brutal, and it's clear that we cannot tolerate the continued existence of this terror enclave on our southern frontier. Israeli parents should not have to live in fear of terrorists crossing the border in the middle of the night and murdering their children. So getting rid of Hamas is the aim. Now, if it was possible to send a letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations and say, please demilitarize Gaza and get rid of Hamas, I'd like to do it that way. It'd be easier for everyone. But that's just not a realistic option. We have to send our troops in, and we have to dismantle through a military conflict the Hamas's military machine. There's no alternative. If you have another alternative, I'm happy to hear it. Now, we've made maximum efforts to reduce the numbers of civilian casualties. We really have tried. It's very difficult because Hamas has embedded itself, as we see with the hospital, inside civilian structures. It uses Gaza's civilians as a human shield. Nonetheless, because of our warnings, some 1 million northern Gazans have fled the northern Gaza Strip, moved to the south, which is safer than the north, and we are still making a maximum effort today to distinguish between those civilians who've remained, who are not our target, and the Hamas terrorists. But Piers, you've been around, you know that there hasn't been a war in modern history where civilians haven't been caught up in crossfire.
No, that is true. Here's what I would say to that. Here's what I would say. I heard Jeremy Bowen, the BBC's Middle East editor today, saying he hasn't seen devastation of the kind that's happened in Gaza, which he's now witnessed, since Aleppo, after the Russians had been in. And that was apocalyptic. And I guess my question for you is, you've persuaded 1 million Gazans to head south. What are they coming back to? Everything that they had is being disintegrated. It's just being vaporized. There's nothing left for these people to come back to, is there?
I agree, and it's clear that when this is over, Gaza will have to become demilitarized, de-radicalized, and rebuilt. And ultimately, though I know it's very difficult for the civilian population of Gaza who are going through what is a traumatic experience, they're going through a war. It's not easy, I understand that. But ultimately, when this is over, it will be better for them too. What has 16 years of Hamas rule brought the people of Gaza? Bloodshed, suffering, impoverishment. Hamas has nothing to show for its time in government except for those bad things. The people of Gaza also deserve better than the current dictatorial terrorist regime that has ruled them.
All right. Okay. So that was Sky News Australia. Now we're going to drop into France 24 Live to see what's going on there. Let's see here. Okay, France 24 is dealing with Ukraine, so we're going to drop into Al Jazeera.
Places in order to do command and control for terror activities, launching rockets, etc., etc.
Well, Eric, he named, if you listen to all of that press conference, all different parts of the building that were being used for different things. That is not what they've been able to prove, is it?
No, of course not. And it's, I would say it would be impossible unless this is something that has been installed the last days. We have been there and in these buildings, and we've never seen any sign of this. They also claim that the radiology department is part of and should be some kind of entrance. And actually, they have searched through the radiology department, destroying, as I got the information from my colleagues, they have sabotaged now all the advanced imaging equipment, which again is not military, have no military importance. They have also, before they entered the hospital,
Wait a minute. Again, of course, Al Jazeera is biased, right? But they are now making the claim, Al Jazeera's experts, analysts are making the claim that the Israelis sabotage the MRI machines. Where's the proof of that? Right? But then in the same breath, they're saying we can't take the discovery by the IDF as truthful. Just listen to us. This is the problem with Al Jazeera. There's nothing. You'll never find anything that the Israelis do right. You'll never find anything that the IDF does right. They'll always accentuate. And there's a lot of carnage that's going on in Gaza, 100%. But it's also true. The Palestinians allowed Hamas to dig in. The Palestinians did not fight for their country, for self-rule. And it was taken over by a bunch of terrorists. And now Israel has to go in and root it out. Oh, by the way, the whole world is being judged because we have ultra-liberalism that is taking hold. And many societies, including Israel, are moving away from the precepts of the Bible and the Torah. It's very simple. But we're going to take this guy at face value that in one side of his mouth, he says that the IDF can't be trusted. We can't verify that, they didn't plant those weapons behind the MRI machine. And then on the other side of his mouth, he says, oh, we have reports saying that the IDF sabotaged the MRIs, destroyed the MRIs. I'll tell you, these people, you can't trust them. And eventually what's going to happen, because this is a biblical event, what's going to happen is that these individuals, like this analyst that's talking on Al Jazeera right now, he's going to be proven wrong in the long run. But it takes time. And that's the thing. We're going to see the ultra liberals are wrong. They're on the wrong side of this. And the ones that have aligned themselves with the Palestinians and Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran are also going to be on the wrong side of this. Everyone wants peace in this world, but sometimes you have to kill to get it.
Shooting at the hospital, injuring and in fact killing at least one of the nurses in the hospital. But when they entered, there was no gunfight, according to my colleagues. So that no gunshot being fired inside the hospital, and that means that there was no fighting. There were no armed soldiers inside the hospital when the IDF entered. So it's very difficult to.
I don't understand.
understand
When they get, I'll be playing the video, but in the video, as he's entering, right, you can hear gunshots in the background. So I don't know what he's talking about. So I just, there was gunfighting that was going on. Maybe there weren't any active shooting inside the hospital, but there was shooting that was going on around the hospital. And my understanding was, I don't know if it was at this moment in time, but there's been shooting coming out of the hospital windows. I just, let's say you're an IDF soldier and you're going in to try to sweep it to find out if there are terrorists there, right? There may be collateral damage when you're sweeping. It's going to be a tough situation. It's close quarters and dark because the energy is off. So, I mean, but no, let's just blame it all on every possible thing that could be wrong must be the IDF and Israelis' fault. The Palestinians couldn't do anything wrong. It can't be Hamas. No, of course not. Them digging in for 15 years. No, it's not their fault. Anything that is Hamas related in that hospital that could be used as a means of war is actually a war crime. Where's Amnesty International saying that? Nowhere. But they'll go on for hours on international amnesty will go on for hours on Al Jazeera saying how bad the IDF is because babies are killed in the crossfire and in the bombings.
These claims.
They are not just claims, of course, by Israel, they're claims by the United States as well, which said it had its own independent intelligence of what was going on. And we heard that from President Biden when he gave that news conference in San Francisco. But I think there was another thing that he said in that news conference in San Francisco that was worth listening to carefully. He talked about what the Israeli military are doing right now.
They're also bringing in incubators. We're bringing in other means to help the people in the hospital, and they've given the doctors, and I'm told the doctors and nurses and personnel an opportunity to get out of harm's way. So this is a different story than I believe was occurring before an indiscriminate bombing.
Okay, those last words. This is a different story than I believe was occurring before indiscriminate bombing. Indiscriminate bombing is how Joe Biden describes it. Isn't that a war crime?
That certainly, on the face of it, might amount to a war crime, again, based on the kinds of evidence they're able to gather. I think it's also important to point out that Biden's earlier comments about the Israeli military providing hospitals with incubators is a little disingenuous. It's like ripping out someone's heart and then giving them a band-aid to cover up the wound. And so I think this must also be called out, the hypocrisy of the United States government as well as other global North leaders who are contributing to the military assistance.
Again, these are biblical times. This is a curse that's coming down on humanity from above. Why? Because mankind hasn't been doing the right thing for many, many, many years. And it's time to start cleaning up. And we are moving towards an era that's very, very spiritual and very, very metaphysical. There's a metaphysical thing that's happening. And people need to start realizing that we need to make the world a better place. But we also have to realize that there is a group of people out there that are extremely evil, and they have to be rooted out and they have to be killed. And placating to them isn't going to help Western society. You're either going to have a caliphate or you're going to have a more Christian, Judaic, Western world. You pick. You want to live under a caliphate or not? And it's very simple. It's very simple. The Palestinians majority of the Palestinians are in the crosshairs, but they also come from the soul root of Esau and Ishmael. And we have to dig out the terrorists, aka Hezbollah, Hamas, and their main funder, which is Iran. And that's the real issue here. Not saying who did what war crime, even though Hamas dug into the hospitals, even though they used NGO money to put the Indonesian hospital right on top of it. That's a war crime, actually. No. It must be the IDF and all their war crimes.
Arms sales to Israel. But this last statement, I think, is absolutely important to note, given that the US itself has prohibitions on attacking hospitals in the way in which Israel is currently attacking hospitals. So even on that basis alone, I think it's important that the US and other global North powers call out Israel for the way in which it's engaging in military attacks on hospitals across Gaza as well as the West Bank. I think it's also important to recognize some of the history around what's unfolding. I know we're focusing very much on Al-Shifa and the attacks on hospitals, but Human Rights Watch has previously found that Israeli authorities are committing the crimes against humanity of apartheid and persecution. And so the ongoing attacks on hospitals must be understood in this broader historical context. And we can't separate these current attacks.
Why are the rocket launcher pads right around the hospital, 70 meters away? Hamas, that's a war crime. Why is the hospital built above existing tunnel structures? That's a war crime. Hamas, why don't you talk about that on Al Jazeera? And again, this is not the normal conflict that we have been seeing for the several decades. For me, 5 decades. All right. So this is much different. And I've gone into detail why. And it starts with not blowing the shofar during Rosh Hashanah on the Sabbath, which you're not supposed to this year. And it started the countdown. And we're in now a very Kabbalistic month where there's a lot of spirituality that's being magnified for the ones that want to make things better and make their soul more cleansed and more purified and be a better human. And that magnification can also magnify the evil. And we're in day 3 or day 4 of that month. It's Kislev. All right. And this is going to carry all the way out for about 28, 29 days. All right. For the month. And this is a very magnified point. Now, I've been telling the crowd out there that's been listening to me that I've been seeing a number 11/30 of this year. Okay, November 30th. It just so happens December 1st is the 19th of Kislev. And that is a very Hasidic, very important Hasidic date. And there's going to usher in an energy source that people that are prepared will be able to absorb the energy source. The people that are not prepared are not going to be able to absorb the energy source. And there's going to be, I'm going to use an analogy. It's not literal, but it's an analogy. It's going to take your vessel and explode it. All right. You're not going to be able to contain it because you haven't been purified. Now that happens on December 1st. Well, this is November 16th. The Kabbalists are saying on December 1st, if you aren't prepared to be able to start absorbing this influx of energy that's going to start on December 1st, you're fucked. Now, I know this sounds strange and very metaphysical, and all the super rationalists out there are going to, go, oh, that doesn't sound scientific and all that. Trust me on this. All of science comes from this energy source, and it's very real, and it's going down. This is taking place, and you have to pay attention. That you're going to see that the narrative of the ones that are on the other side, the ones that are on the wrong side, your tail is going to be eaten by yourself. It's your choice. But there's an energy source that's coming on December 1st. It's going to flux, and that we have this month of Kislev to prepare. And it's going to go into December by another about 10 days, 9 days. But it's going to flux. And the people that are prepared can get the energy and be a better person. And the people that are not, it's going to be a really bad day. It's going to be, you're going to wish you paid attention. And I'm not the only one sensing this. There are many people around the world that I call the sensitives. And it's independent of Judaism. There are Christians that are sensing this. There are Muslims that are sensing this. The Ayatollah is a very holy person. He's a crazy fuck, but he's holy, all right? And he's knowledgeable of his religion. And he understands the Kabbalistic aspects of what I'm talking about and why they hit Israel on October 7th. Mark my words, we are not dealing with the normal events of history. This is much bigger. And it's going to unravel, and the ones that are on the right side are going to wish they used to be.
Crimes of apartheid and crimes against humanity and persecution, collective punishment that are currently unfolding in Palestine.
Thomas, we don't have much time, but very quickly, is there any prospect, do you think, of international law catching up with all of this? Yes, the International Criminal Court's opened an investigation. Are you hopeful that this will go somewhere?
I'm not hopeful that international criminal law or international law itself is going to be able to do anything quickly enough. And I think we do need to think of this wider context.
Now listen to what he just said. He's talking about international law not being able to handle this. All right, now follow my logic. Ones that are not Jewish, you are still governed by the Noahide laws, independent of if you care about that or not. I don't really care if you agree with me or not. The point is that ones that are not Jewish are governed by the Noahide laws. You don't have a choice on that. That's just the way it is. All right. Jews are governed by all 613 mitzvahs. All right. So it's a lot harder to be Jewish than it is to be a non-Jew. All right. So be lucky. Now, part of the Noahide laws is having rule, having law. Right. We're seeing the breakdown of international law. That's a major crack in the Noahide law system. This is another data point that's proving what I'm saying and what the other people that are sensing what's coming. You're going to see mountains of finance, mountains of law, mountains of international power melt in front of you.
To be clear now that we're looking at a wider context of attacks on civilians, attacks on civilian objectives. And I think we need to start thinking about, and we need to start talking about the stages of genocide. And one of the stages of genocide is systematic weakening, which is withdrawal of healthcare, indiscriminate attacks on civilians. And I think that maybe if a court was to take a case to the International Court of Justice on a treaty basis, not a criminal court, but again, we could get an order from the ICJ to Israel to stop and desist what they're doing while we have further investigation. But otherwise, international criminal law.
Let me get this straight. Let me get this straight. Okay. We are the generation that is moving towards the Messianic era. Most likely, we will not benefit from it. We are the warring generation that will provide the stepping stone for the Messianic age. Okay. That's our mission in life. Fine. Okay, fine. I mean, we are, all right. Do you really think that God cares about what some sort of court system to try to litigate the issuance of a more peaceful Messianic age? But for that to happen, you have to take down the Dome of the Rock, reboot the temple. Israel has to move to its biblical borders and root out the major terrorists that are in the region, which happens to be Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. Or is it that the divine somehow will let these types of people that are talking eat their tail? I'm willing to bet that we're going to see this guy eat his words.
Process, and it's not going to help things on the ground now. What we need now is we need civil society to put pressures on their own governments with demonstrations, and we need states to start treating Israel as not an upstanding member of the international community. We need to look at BDS and other non-violent forms of resistance around the world.
But we didn't say anything about Hamas. We didn't say anything about Hezbollah. We didn't say anything about Iran. Now, in the heavenly court, IDF, are you a bad guy? Hamas, are you a bad guy? Hezbollah, are you a bad guy? The Ayatollah, are you a bad guy from Iran? I'm pretty sure the heavenly court is going to be siding positively with the IDF. And not so kindly to the Ayatollah, who's been funding this fucking bullshit.
Order to put pressure on the state of Israel to stop what it's doing.
Well, thank you very much.
Not one word about Hamas.
Eric Foss, A. Kayum Ahmed, and Thomas McManus. If you tuned in late, you can watch the whole program again on our website at any time. Go to aljazeera.com. You'll come.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why Al Jazeera is a devil coming out of the fire for their logo. You know? A peaceful religion. Yeah, right. Okay, so what I'm going to be playing is the Israeli, this will be the last video. It's 6 minutes long. I'm going to be playing the Israeli Defense Force video that has this lieutenant colonel of the reserve walking through and explaining what they found with the MRI building. Now, before I do that, because this is PNN, I'm going to go to commercial. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver that I have. I take Health Max 35 every day. I take a teaspoon of it every day, If I'm not feeling well, I take a tablespoon or two. It's a structural nano silver liquid. You swallow it, and it'll neutralize pathogens. To improve your lipid profile for your blood, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the omega-3 supplement. This is going to be able to bring down that LDL and help with your HDL. So the whole idea is that you want your blood lipid profile, your serum lipid profile, to be high HDL and low LDL. And it'll reduce cardiovascular disease. Go to my store and also pick up a bottle of magnesium and zinc. You need to take magnesium and zinc every day. It'll help to boost up your immune system. And if you're not feeling well, take 2 doses of it. Take a double dose, all right? Zinc has been found to help fight colds. And oh, by the way, it also helped during the last crisis. silver gel, structural nanosilver gel. It helps to neutralize pathogens. You put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your ears and eyes, and it'll help to reduce pathogens. In addition, you can use it as a skincare product. Now back to the news.
I am in the Jazeera hospital, as you can see from the sign behind me, and as you can clearly see from the building, we are going to do a one-shot video. One shot, no editing of all of the evidence that we have found just now in this building of the Chief Hospital. So we're inside the MRI center of the Shifa Hospital. Israeli troops reached here a few hours ago, and we have cleared the area, make sure that it's safe. And a few of the most interesting things that we have found totally confirmed, without any doubt, that Hamas systematically uses hospitals in their military operations in violation of international law. And what we have found, I think, is only the tip of the iceberg. Let me show you a few examples. Security cameras have been obstructed. All of the security cameras are covered, and this isn't the only one. You'll see the rest of them here. Follow me as we go in, and we will see the MRI center and see the weapons that Hamas has hidden inside.
Now, before I go further on this video, I just want to make a statement. There are many people out there that are these truthers, all right? And some of the truthers on certain things, they're right, but they're not always right. And they're always trying to connect the dots, right? And not all dots connect, David Icke. And additionally, not everything is a conspiracy, and not everyone is lying to everybody. There are truths that are happening that people need to pay attention to. And there is a crowd out there on X and in the internet community, if in alternative news or citizen journalism, if you want to call it that, whatever term you want to use. But there is a growing group out there that doesn't believe anything. And they fall in the line of isolationists. And those isolationists are going to end up making things worse for the world by kicking the can down the road like we've been doing for the last 50 years. But it's going to get a lot worse because of just the proliferation of knowledge and the proliferation of these social networks. All right. And I've done a video about this infestation that's taking place on social media. It's like a bunch of bugs, in the ground, just kind of, feeding all on each other, right? And the content is becoming less viable, and just it's a representation of mankind, and you wonder why the divine is coming down and causing havoc and cursing people. All right. We as a society, we as human beings are not very good people, especially in social media. Let's just call it off for what it is. All right. So there's a group of people out there, they don't believe anything. And there was a book that was written by Tom Nicholas. I've met Tom Nicholas. He used to teach at Harvard, and he retired. He was part of the War College, and taught international affairs and war doctrine and stuff. So he's a very knowledgeable person. And he used to be conservative, and then he went kind of liberal. But I have seen his lectures. I was not a student of his, but I actually saw his retirement dinner at Harvard. So I was there. All right. So I know the guy. All right. Not that well, but I know the guy. All right. And Tom was right. There is this hatred and despise and lack of respect in the United States and in the Western world, but especially in the United States now, where no one wants to at least listen to an expert on anything. on anything. You can question the expert, right? And that's a good thing because people are learning, right? But it gets to the point where the truther community ends up being just an echo chamber of a bunch of nonsense and promote actually disinformation. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. It's just the natural result of not paying attention to other people that may have knowledge or some sort of expertise in a particular field. All right. You know, I was doing research in HIV tap protein for my master's. All right. At Harvard. Right. And, you know, I had a unique understanding of virology that allowed me and my medical studies in medical school, which was a different school, about how to handle and what was going on from my perspective about a serious problem in terms of biologic development. With the last crisis we just went through, there was a unique pillar of knowledge that I could share to people. Some people agree with me, some people didn't. That's okay. But there is a group of people out there in the truther world and in citizen journalism and in alternative media, whatever word you want to use, that doesn't believe anything. So what they do is on X, you'll see posts very anti-IDF. Israel's all wrong. You would think that all they listen to is Al Jazeera. And this is not going to move the ball forward for a peaceful world. And that infestation that's taking place on X and in social media and other social medias, but I think X is really, it really magnifies the issue that I'm talking about. They'll take this video and say that the IDF planted all this stuff, and that why would you put metal by an MRI? They haven't had power for a while. Their MRI machine wasn't running. Oh, all that must have been just planted. We didn't have an Al Jazeera journalist following the IDF. And maybe that's what the IDF needs to do. I don't know. Maybe they will. I don't know. But everything on X is not everything. I shouldn't be so absolute. Many things, especially about this video that I'm showing, is trying to spin it that it's some sort of planting of evidence, that the IDF is at fault, that there's some war crime with Israel and the IDF, and they don't talk about the war crimes of Hamas, not just on October 7th, but them digging in underneath hospitals since 2010, which is a war crime. People need to wake the fuck up. I am not wrong. I am not wrong on this. And so let's be honest with what's going on in the X community. For posts, there's a demonization of Israel and the IDF, and is anti-Semitic and in many ways anti-American. And they want to be isolationists and not really look at the real root of the problem, that mankind, all of mankind, all of humans, all the human race is at fault, including the truther. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? While we're in this transitional month that's very Kabbalistic, you can make things right. Or are you going to keep on posting bullshit? And I guarantee you, majority of the infestation will just keep on posting bullshit.
This is where patients come in order to get MRI services. What you see is a more secluded area. And the lighting here is out, so we're using flashlights. We're now, as you can see, in an MRI room. I don't know when this was used the last time. But it is definitely an MRI machine. And if you follow me behind the MRI machine, I'll show you what our troops exposed just minutes ago.
Now, there's 2 MRI
In
machines in
military
this
terms?
video. This room that he's in doesn't, it looks like it's been a storage facility for months. And that MRI has been all trashed up. So it could be that the MRI is bad, it needed servicing or whatever. So, you know, the people are saying, oh, they put weapons behind an MRI machine. The MRI machine hasn't been used. And a lot of these people that are talking about this have never used an MRI machine.
This is a grab bag, grab and go of a Hamas combatant. And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you will be able to see is military equipment. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here, of course, uniform, and all of this was hidden very conveniently, secretly behind the MRI machine. On the other side, we found a backpack with what appears to be very important intelligence, including a laptop, and we'll show you that momentarily. Let's go see the next group.
Now, keep in mind, on the X community, they're saying the IDF planted that. But they won't say anything about the digging in of Hamas under the hospitals. When you see someone always talking about something, and it is so biased, you can't trust them. Now, is the IDF, all lily white? Absolutely not. It was a major intelligence failure that happened during October 7th. Most likely it was an inside job. And on top of it, there have been war crimes with capturing of some of the prisoners, or some of the firefighting, and the IDF mistreated inappropriately some of the Hamas fighters. And those are war crimes. But every war has had a war crime. Every war has had a war crime. The United States did war crimes when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. Every war has a war crime. Every side has war crimes. But they are few compared to what the X community posts and what Al Jazeera is saying.
Still in the MRI center, the backpack was found in here, and it was also hidden behind the MRI machine. As you can see, the rest of the equipment here is proper hospital equipment, right? Bandages and medical gear. It seems as if there's no real shortage because there's a lot of equipment here, but we'll leave that for another discussion. Let's go see weapons and other.
I have a unique perspective because I wrote something in my pre-dissertation work years ago about asymmetry of information, asymmetric information, which actually came right out of Stiglitz's work in economics. And the idea is that you think something is happening in the world. Follow me on this. You got to pay attention. You think that something is happening in the world, and you don't realize that it's different because there's asymmetry of information. There are, in terms of economics, there are buyers and sellers, but if you're a supplier, right, and there are people that are in need of your product, but the people that want to buy don't know that you have the product, there is asymmetry in information. So markets can be in disequilibrium because of asymmetry of information. Now, how do we apply that to this situation, Dr. Paul Cottrell? Well, thank you for asking, Dr. Paul Cottrell. We are told that there are not enough supplies in Gaza. Now, it could be that the medical establishment doesn't know that there are other supplies stored in other facilities, and they didn't know to go and get them. And there is another example of the fog of war, and maybe things aren't as bad as they seem to be because of the asymmetry of information. That's a side note. I guarantee you, no, post on X or anyone doing talks on YouTube have said to you about asymmetry of information.
Prohibited items. As we walk through the main corridor here, our troops did a preliminary search of the area. We tried to uncover the cameras, but all of the cameras have been obstructed. You can see there's black tape covering it. And when our troops opened this closet here, which is in the main part of the clinic, this is what they found. These weapons have absolutely no business being inside a hospital. The only reason they're here is because Hamas put them here, because they use this place, like many other hospitals and ambulances and sensitive facilities inside the Gaza Strip, for their illicit military purposes. So there's Kalashnikov rifles here, even ammunition.
The bottom line is this: that MRI machine those MRI machines weren't being used for a while. And they were either storing stuff in that area, or they were using it as kind of like a hideout. But you got the X posters out there saying the IDF planted them. Yeah, everything's the IDF's fault.
The next part of what we have here, another MRI machine.
Now this MRI room is much cleaner than the other one. The first MRI room looked like a storage facility, and that MRI machine potentially was needing service. All right, but this room looks much cleaner and was recently used.
Contraband, similar to what you saw in the other areas. And let's go see the last thing, which is more related to intelligence, which I think we will be able to extract quite a lot of interesting intelligence from. If you can see, follow me. Up here, on top of a spare part of the MRI department, we found another grab bag. It's empty because we emptied it and cleared it so that we could use and see it. So this is where we found it, and here are the contents of the bag. The contents of the bag are a full military kit for one Hamas terrorist: a live grenade, ammunition, fighting vest with insignia, boots, and of course uniforms, and last but not least, standard AK-47. Inside the hospital, hidden in a secluded area, take a look at this door here. Blast-proof door, which is part of the clinic and part of the infrastructure of the hospital. Everything else looks like a hospital, only this.
Why is there a blast door for an MRI clinic? Why? Why? I've never seen a blast door for an MRI clinic. Why?
Doesn't. Last part. Now we will see something that our intel researchers are looking into. Hold on, before we go on, let's have a look at what we found inside the very same cabinet that houses medical equipment. You can see all kinds of standard military medical stuff. We found another go-to bag, this bag here. And again, we opened it up in order to make sure that it's safe to touch and show. So please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the bag that we found, and this is the stuff that was in. Now
think about it. Now think about it. You're going into it. Let's say you're an IDF troop, all right? I don't know if it was special forces or what. I don't know. That went in there originally. All right. You're going in. You don't know what you're going to deal with. You don't know what's behind the door. All right. And you're trying to sweep and clear. And you're not sure that if you pick up something that it's going to end up being an explosive. Right? Like what we saw in Vietnam, right? And they're known for this horse shit, especially in Iraq. All right. So, you're gonna be careful on trying to clear and make everything safe and open up stuff and make sure that, that everything is clear before you're going to have the camera guys coming in. All right. But you have the people on X that are going to say, oh, the Israelis must have planted that. Must have planted that. No, I'd like to actually hear someone that actually has literally cleared a room of, when they were in Iraq or Afghanistan, worried about explosive devices that they had to deal with, and watch this video. And I'm willing to bet they'll come to the same fucking conclusion that I'm coming to. And that is that the IDF found evidence that heavily suggests that Hamas was using that MRI department as a staging ground.
Insignia. Knife. For those of you who read Arabic, you'll be able to understand what it says here. But it's Hamas, the military wing, Kataib al-Qassam, of course a vest with equipment, and as always an AK-47, standard gear, grab and go, which they thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital. And the last item, which I'm sure will be very interesting to analyze, is a laptop. We found it in the MRI room. This is how the laptop looks. I don't know who it belonged to, but now it is being analyzed by our Intel people. Tactical radio communications, which we will analyze. Lots of disks, which will be analyzed. And a computer, which at first glance already provides a lot of incriminating evidence.
I don't know why. What is it, going to commercial? Hold on.
Turn your home into a modern paradise for just $40.
I hate commercials.
LED light strip that's taking the world by storm. No wires, pole.
Oh, that was the end of the video.
From the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestinian.
All right, so that was the end of the video. But the bottom line is this: there seems to be a growing amount of evidence to suggest that Hamas was using the grounds around the hospital and underneath the hospitals, and using because it's not just one hospital building. There's a campus, so there's going to be smaller buildings, right, that are part of the larger medical campus, such as that MRI department, which was a separate building. All right. So there's growing evidence to suggest that terrorists were hiding out there or staging stuff there. All right. That we already know that they're launching rockets 70 meters away from the hospital. So be careful. And when you're watching these, of course, not everything that the IDF does is going to be lily white, and we have to call them off when that is happening. But it is not that prevalent, is my point. And any war crime needs to be prosecuted, especially in this war. All right. But we have so many people on X being anti-Israel, anti-IDF, borderline or belligerent anti-Semitic, and in many ways anti-American. But sometimes not anti-American, just anti-Israel. So the water's muddied. But the reality of the situation is this: Hamas is by far a much worse actor than the IDF. And if you literally cannot see that without me losing my voice, screaming on the top of my lungs, then you're part of the problem. And you fall in the line of those ultra liberals. Even if you're conservative, you're falling in that group that is going to be eating its tail. This is a battle between Western society and freedom and the Jewish Christian tradition, or do you want to be ruled by a caliphate? And I think it's very clear that Jacob is gaining strength. The soul root of Jacob is gaining strength, and the Temple Mount is going to be rebuilt by bringing down the Dome of the Rock. And it's going to give Esau a shit fit. And we're the generation that has to clean up the mess. That's where this is going. Get on the right side and you'll be okay. There is a famous psalm, I think it's 22, that says, as I walk in the valley of death, I fear no evil. All right. When you purify your soul, independent of your religion, you will not fear anything when you're going through this tumultuous time. And you will actually be protected because of that. You let that element of fear, if you let the element of the snake give you fear, you're adding to the risk of you dying through this crisis, either spiritually or physically. So use logic, but don't fall into the Westphalian geopolitical way of trying to de-escalate stuff. Because what is happening here is much different than what happened in 2006, what happened in 2008 and 9, what happened in 2014, or many conflicts way before then. This is different. There's an alignment that's happening. And it's very spiritual, it's metaphysical, it's Kabbalistic. And if you don't prepare, you're going to get screwed, literally. Please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 channels on YouTube. I have Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon. Click the links in the video description. All the links are there. Please help support my news coverage. Everything I say, when it's covering the news and the last crisis that we went through, or some thoughts that I have on certain things, or teaching you about certain aspects of science, medicine, that's all free. To allow that to happen, it's through donations and helping the news coverage. On my website, you can donate. It's through people subscribing to being a paid subscriber to my Patreon account, donating through Buy Me a Coffee. That allows all the content to be free for everybody. Yet, you'll listen to people that actually put little snippets on YouTube and then put the rest of the video under a paywall. And you're going to consider them genuine? You're going to consider them as a source of information, even though what they've done is that they go, well, we want to titillate you with a video, but make sure you're a paid subscriber on Patreon so you can see the whole video, so you can be informed, be a truther, so you know. Even that mentality is egoistic. That very thing that you're seeing in the truther community, to slap a little teaser video for free for you to go and sign up for their behind the paywall membership to see the full video so you're informed, but no one else is. Do you think that when you're going through these tumultuous times and the tumultuous times that we just went through in 2020, trying to make sure that people didn't take things that they shouldn't be taking, like the V, trying to protect themselves so they didn't contract the pathogen, trying to figure out what was going on with the treatments, trying to figure out what the hell was going on in 2020 to 2023. There was a huge fog of war that was going on. And it's still foggy. And there are many people that didn't survive it. There were over 1 million people that died from the last crisis. I made sure that all my videos were free. all of them. And many of them were censored on YouTube, and I moved that content for free over to Brighteon. Why? Because I knew that the public needed to figure out a way out of the crisis. But there were so many truthers out there that try to monetize it in such a way where they put it on behind a paywall. And you are still supporting those fuckers. And these are some of the same people that are telling you that Israel's a bad guy. It's amazing. And this is the reason why mankind's being judged. The egoism. The lack of consideration of what is really going on in this world with terrorism. And the realization that our liberal life is ending. And it's going to go back to a conservative life. It's not okay to kill 60 million babies in the womb. It was stupid to think that you could keep on going decade after decade after decade, and that the higher power would allow that to happen. So, make sure that you subscribe to my channels, help if you can through donations. The links are in the description of all my videos, and share my videos. And even if you don't agree with me, share my videos and ask your friends to subscribe. Because I'm going to be saying stuff in the future that you're going to actually need to know. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and listen also to my protocol, because it's going to help boost up your immune system. Because if this thing gets hot and heavy like I think it is, that means it's going to go unconventional. That means chemical and biological. Iran has a lot of smart people. I studied with them. They have the means of biologics. Trust me on this. Or do you want to listen to Dave Hodges? Age with Dave. Get stupid with Dave. Subscribe to some sort of truther that throws all their fucking content behind a paywall. So you could be informed. Because we are the egoistic generation. Pay attention. Things are going to get hot and heavy. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.